This is the newly released DJI Avata, the latest FPV drone on the market which is ready to fly. What do I mean by ready to fly? Well, most FPV drones on the market are actually just parts and you have to get them and build them. And DJI are now releasing drones which are literally ready to fly straight out the box. Well, a lot of FPV drones are actually homemade by the people who fly them. I built a few in the past and really enjoyed it, and the biggest regret was actually selling it. Now with DJI now making these and packing them full of the DJI technology, what is my initial impression of this? Because I've paid for this, I've paid well over £1,000 for everything that you're going to see in this video, so have I done the right thing? The DJI Avata isn't really an expensive drone. There's 3 packs and you can get this alone for less than £500. But for that price you get nothing more than the drone, a single battery and a few accessories like a couple of spare propellers. But for me and maybe yourself who doesn't own the controller or the goggles, you're gonna need a lot more. And I mean a lot more. Much more. The next option is the DJI Avata Fly Smart combo. For this you get the same as what's in the first pack, but you also get the V2 goggles and a motion controller. That's everything you need to be able to get up in the air, but not everything that you need to have the ultimate FPV experience, but it is the pack that I bought. Now the biggest bundle that you can get is the DJI Avata Pro View combo. Same as a smart combo, but you do get the new version of the DJI goggles. Much smaller and better if you don't have perfect 20/20 vision. But I haven't tried them, I don't own them, and I can't really comment on the experience of the V2 goggles. But still, even for that price, you don't have everything you need to have the ultimate FPV experience. But more on that in a later video. So for somebody like myself who has built and flown FPV drones in the past, why did I bother buying a ready to fly drone over buying the parts for another and then building another? Well, in terms of pricing, it's pretty hard to compare. Regardless of what drone you buy, you're still going to need goggles, and you're still going to need a controller. And back in the day when I built my drone, the goggles and controller I bought cost me around about £450 for both of them, and that was used. As for the parts to build the drone itself, you can spend as little as £100 to £200, or you can spend as much as £700 to even maybe £1,000. And the thing is, when you're flying FPV, they can go boom pretty quick. And that is the one thing that's put me off DJI FPV drones so far, because all you've seen on the internet is broken parts. Like the drones, when they've crashed it, it's got a broken arm, and the only real way to get them repaired is by sending it off to DJI, which can cost a fortune if you don't have DJI Refresh, or sending it to a third-party repairer. And regardless, you're gonna be without a drone for a week or so, and you don't really want that, do you? But with a homemade drone, because you've built it, you can also repair it. And even if you're out in the field flying it, you could take a whole kit with you, a soldering iron, and get back up in the air within maybe half an hour. But with the DJI Avata, I feel like things are a little bit different this time. Firstly, the guard which is surrounding the whole drone is built to a really nice standard. I've crashed it a few times, and so far there's not really a scratch on it, and there's definitely not a crack on it. Secondly, even if you do crack it, even if you do split it, you can get that replaced, and you can also get the grey frame replaced also. You just buy it straight from DJI, they get it sent out to you, and you do it yourself. And it's not mega money, you can get, I think, both of them for less than £35. As for the other parts of the drone, such as the camera or even the motors, I can't really comment because I actually never broke a camera or a motor when I was flying FPV. Perhaps I was the lucky one. But I can imagine if you had to send this back to DJI, it would cost a fair bit. So getting DJI Refresh is something I would definitely recommend, because you may be unfortunate in maybe the first few flights. So what is the DJI Avata? DJI already have the DJI FPV drone, which is very similar to a 5-inch racing drone, or quads, which we used to call them back in the day. And pretty much you can rip around the skies as quick as you like. I used to love going through all the gaps through the windows at old abandoned buildings. It was great. It was possibly the best out-of-body experience I've ever had. So if DJI already have the DJI FPV drone, then why have they made this? The design of this is what we would call a cinewhoop, and you may have seen the videos where a drone is flying through like a bowling alley and going all behind the scenes, flying through people. That's done with this style of drone. They're much smaller airframes, smaller propellers, normally a lot lighter, and they normally have these prop guards going all the way around the propellers. And if one of these is flying around you, you'll be glad that it's got propeller guards on it, because yeah, that was my hand a few years ago. Fun times. Some of the worst injuries I've ever seen has been caused by a drone, and normally a hand-built drones. Quite simply, it's not fun. So propeller guards are a lifesaver, or in this case, a finger saver. Personally, I actually prefer the design of this over the DJI FPV, but at no point am I saying that DJI FPV is a bad drone. So if I could build a drone for £200 to £300, why would I pay £500 for this? Well, let me be completely honest. Building an FPV drone, especially if you're new to the hobby, is a nightmare. You need to make sure that you have the right parts and that all the parts can work together, not only just be compatible with each other, but also electrically work together. You have to solder all the parts together, and if you do it even slightly wrong, it's really easy to fry a flight controller, an ESC, or even a video transmitter. Been there, done that many times. But once you've done all that, you need to be able to tune the drone. And by tune, I mean make sure that it flies smoothly or in the way that you want. Give it its air characteristics. Now the Avata comes built, it comes pretty much already tuned, but you can't really tune it any more than changing how the controller reacts to your input. This also comes packed with all of DJI safety features, the same as what you get on the Mavic series. And trust me, that's a massive game changer in the FPV world. Imagine this, you've spent days researching, working out what you need to get, you order all the parts, you get it, you build it, you tune it, you make sure that it's working, ready for its maiden voyage. You're up there flying above a lake, above the sea, 100 meters up above trees, and you lose signal. What happens? It drops out of the sky. It will drop into the sea, into the lake, into the top of a tree and get stuck, or if you're lucky, it'll hit the ground, smash into pieces, and you might be able to use a few of the parts towards your next drone. And that's literally how we are meant to program FPV drones when we build them. The only other option for the drone, if it was to lose signal with the controller, is just to keep going until it runs out of battery. And at that point, you're never going to see it again, and wherever it's going to land, it's probably going to smash anyway. Whereas this, if this loses signal, it just goes into return to home mode. It will literally stop wherever it is in the air, it'll right itself and return to home the same as a Mavic 3 or a Mavic Mini. People have had problems with DJI return to home in the past. There's not been anything said about the DJI Avata as of yet, but regardless, it's still a good feature to have, even if it doesn't work all of the time.
Speaking of batteries, that's possibly one of the biggest things about the DJI Avata. 16 minutes. You may get a little less if you're going full send, you may only get 10 to 12 minutes, but in the world of FPV, that's quite a lot. In my drone, which I built a few years ago, a single battery would maybe get me 2 to 3 minutes or maybe 6 minutes if I was being incredibly gentle on the throttle. But regardless of whichever DJI Avata pack you get, I would recommend getting the Fly More pack because one battery, regardless of how long it lasts, it just isn't enough. Another life-saving thing, literally this time, is the smart batteries that come with it. When you want to charge these batteries, you can plug a bunch of them in all at the same time, plug them in, and actually walk out the room and not be afraid of walking back into a fireball. If there's a fault with any of the batteries, the charger stops charging and disables it. LiPo batteries, on the other hand, for the home-built FPV drones, well, I actually know people who have lost their whole house, and unfortunately even a family member, because the batteries can be incredibly unsafe. They can go incredibly wrong at any moment. Admittedly, all batteries can, but I used to put them on charge and never leave the room. I used to sit and watch them. Once they were charged, I would tape up all the terminals, put them in a fireproof bag, and then go put them in the garage away from the actual house.
Now the Avata isn't all good. I'm not saying this is the best FPV drone in the world, because it's not. Firstly, the SD card slot and the USB port is located in possibly the single most stupidest place you could ever put anything on this drone. There's many other places on the bottom of this drone or just the drone in general where they could have put it, but it's only a minor thing. It's also a fairly small drone, meaning that it's got smaller propellers, much smaller than what I'm used to having on an FPV drone. So what do small propellers mean for your flying experience? Well, you may struggle in situations where you have high wind or certain maneuvers what you're wanting to make with the DJI Avata. I can't really comment on the high wind situation because it hasn't been windy enough for me to actually try it. But when it comes to certain maneuvers like flipping it around and letting it dive towards the ground, it does struggle to catch itself at the very bottom. I guess it just feels a little less responsive to what I'm used to using, but it is a much smaller drone and it's not really designed for that, so you have to kind of understand what its limits are. But honestly, I really love this drone. It's reignited my passion for FPV. It's been an incredible week or so with it, and it's amazing, especially for new people who's wanting to get into the FPV hobby. Do I think that it'll satisfy you and this will be the only FPV drone that you ever want or ever buy? Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to say, and it depends what kind of direction you want to go in. But the big question is, how easy is it to fly one of these things? Well, if you want to find out, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for the notification for when that video is out. Laters.